One day I entered my workshop as always. I came in, turned on the lights, hung up my jacket, closed the door and walked in and looked around to see the mess I left behind. But suddenly I saw my mallet, not where I left it the last time. But then Daniel! Hey, Daniel! Can you please stop for a second and just explain what the heck are you doing there?
Okay, really quickly. For the roubo workbench, the mini roubo workbench, I'm going to glue the legs, including the tenons, inside pre-glued mortises. So I don't have to chisel all the mortises by hand. I did that already with the big one. You can see that. Now, where the legs are, I marked them with number 2. And where the tenons are going to be glued, this is the spacer between one board and the other, which is gonna form the tenon, and this is also number 2. I marked them the same number in order to wake my way through the thicknesser all at the same time. So I'm making sure that this tenon is going to fit inside this mortise without doing all the chiseling work, because I need this bench real quick and I don't have time to do all the mortising and tenons and joints by hand. It's a lot of work, and I think I might just do this and figure out if I can actually save a lot of time with this technique. Just another way. Now, you happy?
Yes, I'm happy.
Okay. Can I work?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm not even here. Now, as I already explained in detail, I made sure that all the parts that have to be the same thickness are processed at the same settings. That will always give me a consistent thickness and I don't have to worry about tolerances. Then I made sure that everything has the right length and started gluing up the legs. Layer by layer, I glued each and every board together, making sure there is no twisting or moving. This assembly is really fast and an easy way to make your tenons fit perfectly into the mortises. Here is the irony. When I first started and built the full-size roubo workbench, I didn't have a jointer or even a bandsaw. And now, when I'm building the mini roubo workbench, I'm using all the tools I got. Here is a nice and easy way to remove excess wood glue in tiny gaps. Just take your toothbrush and use some water to clean up the corners. Removing the clamps went smoother than a jellyfish being swallowed by a whale. Only the sound was a bit weird. A few days later, because I have a real job that pays my bills and I can't really afford going to the workshop every day unfortunately, but I'm deviating again, so... What was I talking about? Something about woodworking? Oh yes. Next thing you know, I planed the sides with my hammer. Jointer, of course. And then sent the legs to the thicknesser. Through the thicknesser. Noticed that I'm being filmed here? Well, I had a friend helping me out with some filming. Thought I'd mention that in case you wondered. In no time, I perfectly faced all sides and was ready to do some last steps before committing myself to the tabletop. Now here's the thing, if I wanted I could have easily done those angle cuts by hand, as I have previously with the bigger version of that bench. linked up there and in the description below. But to be completely honest with you, I was lazy and I had this chick just waiting for me to grab it and use it, and the most obvious reason is I had a bandsaw that does a better job and, most importantly, a faster job than a hand tool and my skills can ever achieve.
This is how you cut 45 degrees tenons on the bandsaw. Really easy.
I even took the time to clean up the saw marks with a chisel and stopped right before I was starting to make it worse. Now we are halfway through the video, and to be honest, I'm not even sure how many are still watching, but in case you are, thank you very much. At least some heroes are out there. Here I'm cutting the middle parts where the legs meet the sandwich boards, and those have to be cut to the right length. I even got a new saw blade, and wow, that thing is cutting those boards like a Japanese knife cuts sushi. Speaking of sushi, does anybody love sushi as much as I do? I'm deviating again. Well, let's talk about woodworking again. After all the parts are ready to go, I glue the middle part first and let it set so I can focus on the more complicated glue up without too many boards wiggling around. While that glue is setting, I started to work on my moxon vise. And lo and behold, I had some very nice mahogany just waiting for its new purpose. But hey, no moxon vise is good enough without some good old stainless steel ACME threads. I specially ordered one long pole and cut 30 centimeters for each thread with an angle grinder. After magically drilling some holes where the nut is going to be placed, I then marked the outer lines with a pencil, only to see that I had to widen up the holes a notch in order to set the nut inside, but flush with the surface. Luckily, I watch a lot of YouTube and got some tips and tricks up my sleeve. Just take your old drill bit you used before, in my case a 20mm Forstner bit, recenter your piece and clamp it down at that position. Now you can drill whatever the heck of a bigger diameter you want and you are still centered. If you haven't seen that trick before, you're welcome. Then I quickly chiseled out the hexagonal shape out of the nut and voila! Beautiful! Nothing more satisfying than having your nuts perfectly fit some mahogany holes. Well, that sounds weird. Now I'm drilling each and every board in order to fit that threaded pole. And you may ask, why the heck am I doing that? Well, firstly, that's necessary so I don't have the hand wheels go above the tabletop surface. I could have used bigger hand wheels and set the poles a little bit lower, but I wasn't able to find the perfect sized hand wheels. After cleaning up the pathway for the threaded poles, I was ready for the big Glue up. Well, it was a decent glue up. Quite stressful to be honest, but everything went okay-ish. You see, having only two hands and using Type Bond 1 with an opening time of who knows what, 5 to 10 minutes, and quite a lot of pieces to glue up is kind of stressful, and it can make you sweat your pants a little bit. While it looks so easy and straight away in the video, I can assure you it is not. I always thought while watching YouTube, oh man, how hard can this be? But doing it yourself is a totally different thing. But boy, after every clamp is placed and you take off your gloves, you feel accomplished. The next day I removed all the clamps and what the heck? It's rocking like a punk in his prime time on a Blink 182. Yes, that's how you say it. Blink 182 concert. Well, never mind. That was just the glue underneath the legs. I removed that with the jointer off camera. But you know, what is on camera? Me routing a route for the pole to go through. I tried to clean up the underside with the plane a little bit, but I realized that nobody is going to know how uneven that side is, except a few hundred or thousand people online, and I'm okay with that. Not everything needs to be meticulously flat and clean shaped, except some good old chamfers made by a block plane. Look how nice that even sounds. One important thing is to have something that you can clamp your workbench with. And I don't mean clamps, I mean an extension where you have your clamps sitting on. If you don't know what I mean, just hold on a few seconds, you will understand. I made some marks with the pencil. I extended those marks with the help of a square and then went straight to my Dozuki and made some clean cuts. In case you don't know what a Dozuki is, that's the saw I'm using there, and it is a pull saw made in Japan, and that's why it's called Dozuki. That's probably not the real reason for that, but never mind. Of course I needed to clean everything afterwards with a chisel. I mean, where would be the fun of woodworking if it wasn't for the chiseling? I glued that extension. Seems like a reasonable name. So I added some glue to that extension and clamped everything down for a few minutes. Then I drilled some holes from underneath and inserted some wood screws. The reason for that is on one hand I can continue working without wasting another day waiting for that glue to set, and on the other hand this will give the whole clamping situation more durability. Next thing you know, I'm already preparing the bench jaw to be mounted and glued to the tabletop. This time I'm using regular 8mm dowels to make my life easier. I also had one misalignment while gluing the legs and I had to fill it up. It wasn't the smoothest filling I ever made, but I'm going to plane the whole top again anyway. While I was preparing all the woodworking, I had a friend helping me out with some work on the metal lathe to make it fit into the diameter of the hand wheel. Thanks, Stefan. He told me that his hard metal tool broke, but he somehow managed to finish the job. Or he had a secret plan to kill me with a 10mm pointy thing. Well, lucky me, I had a file and an automatic center punch where I quickly found a flat spot to drill my hole into the cute little hand wheel. I drilled through the hole into the pole for perfect alignment, then I tapped in some N3 threads, one into the hand wheel and one into the threaded pole. Unfortunately, I had no headless screw or set screw as Google is suggesting, so for testing purposes I used a regular M3 screw to mount the handwheel onto the rod. After a few hundred resolutions, I finally screwed in both poles, and boy, that vise is a cute little beast. I quickly clamped on a small offcut to test the vise and was very happy with what I've seen. Okay, I think it's good to go. Daniel, you can go. No, never mind. Next thing, I was cutting the infill using a dowel saw. And before you even know, I planed down the vice's jaw to match the height of the tabletop. And to make it even better, I used my jointer and let the whole thing slide over those rotating knives. After quickly trimming the whole side of the bench, I rounded the edge of the vice's jaw and flush cut everything assembled in one path. No, not really. I had to come again and finish the job with the Japanese saw. Once I figured out how many holes I thought I would need, I drilled 6 90mm holes for some bench dogs or hold down clamps or whatever I might use in the future. Now, whoever thinks this method is not accurate enough is just simply wrong. Eyeballing is good enough for these purposes. Trust me, I'm an engineer. Just jokes aside, I am an engineer, just saying. So, you have to believe me. Believe me! Okay, it's getting weird now. After chamfering all edges, I was ready to sand everything. I spare you that part and getting everything oiled. Except this little spot here. Did you see it? Here! That one. Of course I had to burn in my logo onto the face of the jaw. After everything dried up a little bit, I assembled the vise and got into some heavy duty testing to see if it was worth building that thing. I think this bench is beautiful. What do you think? Thanks for watching, as always, appreciate it. Until the next time. Bye!